Greetings to all our viewers. Welcome back to the second episode of India Vision 2030. In our first episode, our distinguished host, Professor Purnendu Ghosh, had an enlightening conversation with Dr. B. N. Suresh about the future of space technology in India. Today, we're thrilled to continue this journey with another luminary in the field of science and technology. It is an immense pleasure to introduce our guest for today, a visionary in semiconductor technology and academia, Professor V. Ramgopal Rao. Professor Rao is the Group Vice Chancellor for BITS Pilani. He has published over 500 research papers, filed more than 50 patents, and co-founded 2 deep tech startups. His contributions have earned him over 40 prestigious awards, including the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize and the Infosys Prize. He is a fellow of the IEEE, the World Academy of Sciences, and several Indian science academies. He has been honored with 3 honorary doctorates, underscoring his global impact and recognition in his field. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Professor Ramgopal Rao to our second episode of India Vision 2030.
Thank you, Professor Rao, that I got an opportunity to talk to you, though I know you for a very long time, since your days in IIT Bombay and then IIT Delhi and then now in Institute of Technology, Pilani. This is a part of a conversation I'm having with so few people, and as I have already talked to Dr. B. N. Suresh about this thing. And I'm talking to you about because you are large, you have experience of so many years in education as well as in research and innovation. Particularly these days, when I see you, I find that your role in research and innovation is much bigger than in maybe in teaching. But you are basically you have as different hats you have. You are a teacher, you are a researcher, you are an administrator now for quite some time now. What interests me is that when you started your things, when you were a child, um, I know that when you are a child, you don't have very kind of crystallized things in your mind. And did you how you started and why did you come to engineering? Yeah, thank you, Professor Ghosh. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. In fact, I have read your articles and I'm a great admirer of many of your articles and your views and the way you express them and all that. I have always admired you, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. My life's journey started from a very humble beginnings. I come from Telangana, and of course, it was a combined Andhra when I was born. And so from a remote, I would call it between a village and town. When I was born, it was more like a village. Now it has become a town. And Kolhapur, it's not Kolhapur in Maharashtra, but Kolhapur in Tamil in Telangana. And I studied in Telugu medium until my 12th because there was no other medium at that time. And in a government school, it was all government schools until 12th, and it's a very remote place in Telangana. So in our place, all transport services they used to come there and they have to go back. There was no thoroughfare or anything because there is after that there are hills and all that, and so you come and go back. It's a corner kind of a place. So from that place, studying there until 12th, I really did not know what opportunities are and what I would do later. But everywhere during our time, I'm talking of 1970s. During that time, for us, getting a government job, was all that mattered. And engineering was already becoming popular. When I did engineering, there were about 9 colleges in the whole combined state of Andhra Pradesh. And so I wanted to do engineering so that I can get a government job through these public service commissions that were also very popular at that time. So I also did the same thing. I wrote the local entrance exam and I did my bachelor's in technology in electronics and instrumentation. And but I graduated and then I took up a job, which were all okay, but I was not happy with with whatever I learned or whatever I was doing. So I wanted to do masters, but I was very clear that I will do masters, maybe from an IIT. At that time, even NIT Warangal also was very good. So I thought I will only go to one of those places to do my masters. And I went to IIT Bombay for my masters, and to me that was a turning point. Until that time, I had no idea what I am good at. I had no idea what I would do, and it was just going with the flow. And everybody was doing engineering. I also did. Everybody wanted a government job. I also thought I would do that. And but once I went to IIT Bombay, there at least I came to know what is engineering and who are the kind of people you can consider as role models. I mean, people who have done very well, you know, perfect kind of gentlemen. And I came across professors in IIT Bombay, Professor Vasi, Professor Dinesh Sharma, Professor Rakesh Lal, Professor Chandorkar. These people I admired the most, and so I wanted to be like them. And that is when I realized that I wanted to be like, let's say, Professor Vasi, who was my mentor and guide there. And so that set me a kind of a benchmark. So once I decided that I wanted to be like him, and then I knew that, for me to become a faculty member in an IIT, then I knew what I need to do. And so that set a direction for me. And in my master's at IIT Bombay, I also realized that I am good in research because, that imagination and reading papers, asking the right questions, that I realized I'm better than, anybody else I came across there. And my professor also recognized that. And he also said, research will be a good career for you. And so he also encouraged me to pursue research as a career. And so my entire career started, with that realization that I wanted to be like somebody I met at IIT Bombay and that I am good in research because that the kind of asking the right questions came very naturally to me, and with that in mind, then I pursued for a PhD career in Germany, and then I went to US, and but I always wanted to become a professor like him, so I came back. The day I was offered a job in IIT Bombay, I wanted to come back the next day, but my wife said, no, no, we will go a little later. And so we spent another 3 months and then we came back and I joined IIT Bombay and I never looked back. So it is all, if I look back, maybe there was a destiny, if I had not gone to IIT Bombay and if I had not come across, people of that caliber I met at IIT Bombay, I don't think I would have been doing anything. Maybe I would have at most become principal of some college or would have been teaching in some place, and I wouldn't have become anything actually. So uh, I mean, I don't even know what I would have become, but I think I'm happy that I came across those right people at the right time when I was an impressionable kind of an age, and I think it worked out very well for me. Touch wood. No, just I'm just curious listening to you. You had a very nascent idea of engineering. As such, engineering education, and after so many years now, after going through all this rigmarole and all that, the way engineering is nowadays, for example, in our times, I remember we never thought of going to a management school or becoming an IAS. We always had sale and so few organizations, where if you become a kind of a engineer trainee, that is at the end of it, something like that. But then slowly we have grown, we have come to this stage and all that. We have seen engineering as such, and particularly engineering education, I'm talking about, with which both of us are very closely associated for so many years. I find that the concepts of engineering has maybe broadened much more than what it was. And naturally, when the concepts are broadened, the way you impart education also changes. So, do you think these changes have proportionately taken place, or well, there is a lot of improvements are always required? But what do you think about the whole thing? I think institutions haven't kept pace with the changes that have taken place in the society, or even the expectations of an engineer. Our institutions are still much theory oriented. I still think we teach too much of theory to students, very little hands-on kind of an experience. And that's one thing which distinguishes Indian education system with American system. In US, for example, where my daughter went to study, and I could see that everything is hands-on. They're always building a project for every course, and that's how they learn much more. Whereas in IITs, of course, we do give that kind of some amount of hands-on experience, but overall we teach too much of theory, too many courses, too many credits. The students don't have much time to do anything else. And I often say that, we teach essentially, what we can test, right? If I cannot test something I am teaching, then I think it's not worthwhile for me to teach kind of a thing. So that is what it has become. So as a result, because teachers are teaching what they can test, students are also learning what they can be, where they can score good marks and all that. So everything has become examination oriented. So the examinations have come in the middle of everything, and everybody is only trying to, do their things done so that, teachers are looking at what can I teach, which can be tested. Well, students are studying to clear those examinations. I think everything has become too much of examination centric. That learning is always fun, whereas studying is always like a chore, and you are not very keen on doing it. It looks like a job kind of thing. But learning is always fun. I think studying and learning thing, is where the problem lies right now. And so we need to make our curriculum more practice oriented, and more hands-on training kind of a thing. By end of 4 years as an engineer, I should be able to claim that I can build something on my own, or I can do research on my own in a topic, and I have or I can go and work in an industry, because I know what industries do, and I have pretty much seen what happens there through internships, through practice school kind of concepts. That I can go and confidently work in an industry. That kind of a confidence is what a student should be able to gain. And that is where the problem probably lies, because many students graduate, but they don't have that confidence to do anything on their own. They're always questioning themselves: am I good enough for this industry? And if I ask them to build something, but I have not done anything before, therefore, can I build that? I think these are the kinds of challenges that we face. And that is where the curriculum revisions need to take place, more industry exposure for students who want to go to industry, and more research exposure for students who want to pursue an academic kind of a line, more entrepreneurship kind of an experience of building something on their own for students who want to pursue an entrepreneurship kind of a route. So because students will have different aspirations. So we need to give them enough freedom, enough flexibility within our curriculum, so they can decide on a career and then be able to pursue that. And if somebody wants to try all of those and then decide, which is also fine. You should be able to give them, some foothold into each of these, so that they know what each of them looks like, and then be able to, decide on their career. I think without that, what I fear is happening is lot of herd mentality. Just because somebody has taken this branch, 100 students want to take the same branch, and just because somebody got a job in a certain kind of an industry, the next hundreds of people want to take up a job in that same kind of an industry. So we are all, just driven by that fear of missing out kind of a factor, what they call FOMO kind of a factor. And other than that, they are not making choices based on, you know, all the information that they have, based on all the things they have tried, and then realizing that I am good in this, therefore I want to pursue a career in that. Lot of societal pressure on them, unfortunately. I think lot of restructuring of education is needed. It has to start with the curriculum revision. In BITS Pilani, for example, in the last 1 year that I have been here, we have now undertaken a massive curriculum revision. So we are essentially following this methodology that we need to give enough opportunities for a student to know what he or she is good at, right? Whether I want to pursue a startup, can I then provide them the kind of training required for that? Do I want to go to an industry, or do I want to pursue a research careers? I think that is what we want to eventually provide them as a lot of avenues for them to try and explore that, and then with all that information, then make an informed choice on your career prospects. And actually, I remember while talking to you that when I was a student, undergraduate student, I am from HVTI Kanpur. I did my graduation from there, and that time Dr. Sian Mitra was our director. And I remember after first year, he left HVTI and came to. Yep. And that time, the most fascinating thing for us was the practice school concept. Exactly. He started in our country, and I remember it was a very big success, because student was supposed to spend a lot of time in an industry. Right. And I don't know whether you are still pursuing that concept. Doing very well. Practice school is one of the USPs of BITS Pilani education. Yes, that is what just yesterday, my dean told me that we have to place almost like 3,500 students every year in practice school. She said, sir, we have got now all of them placed. These are all paid internships. Yes, I think that model is very strong. Very, very strong. Even in my time, it was one of the strongest models. And I'm so happy that this is continuing. And another thing which I was reading through, but again, just to add to that, the biggest problem is here is a sort of a thing that was tried out, which worked very well. The whole country should have actually adapted that. That is what where I was coming to that. AICT or UGC should have made it mandatory for every institution in the country to have practice school, and government should have made industries to provide those sort of training sessions for students. That is what we should have actually done, because that I see in BITS Pilani working, very well. Yes. I will tell you my experience, if I can share with you, is that when we started our new program in IIT Delhi on biotechnology and biochemical engineering, that time I was incidentally the head of the department. I went to in all the industries and all that, because I wanted to have, I was not calling them practice school, but I wanted that our students should go and spend a lot of time in industry and all that. I realized in that during those days that many industries are not ready to accept our students. They think they are very bright and will not be able to. And if you give them waste treatment job, every day you go and measure what is the flow rate and what is the BOD and COD, they are not interested. They really want some challenging thing. So another reason, just to add to that, why is it? Since I also come from the IIT system, 25 years in IIT. In IIT, in BITS Pilani, the difference is students spend up to 8 months in the industry. Yes. That is sufficient time for industry to get some work done out of students. Yes. In IIT, the curriculum is so tightly integrated that it's very difficult to find other than summers for the practice school. And 2 months, nobody, industry is interested in taking them. So you have to keep an entire semester free for the students if you want to make the practice school concept work. But IITs, don't have that kind of a concept. But they have the freedom to do that. They have to do that, but they are not doing that. Anyway, this is a very big debate, because this is going on in my mind after I'm no longer teaching. But these things come to mind by so many years. So what I feel is very important, what you are saying, I also feel that even at the extent of removing some of the courses and increase their practice school concept. One semester, yes, full semester, and that's very good. And that what we are now doing in BITS as part of curriculum revision is, we are not saying every student should do a practice school. Some students, I'm not interested in an industry job. Yes. Therefore, that one semester free time you have, you do a research project. Yes. Or that one semester free time you have, you build a startup.
Yes.
We are now building an office of experiential learning. The practice school concept will morph into an office of experiential learning. That office will have 4 or 5 options. Practice school is one of them. So that is how now we are looking at the practice school concept. Those who are looking for an industry job, you of course have the tested, tried model, which you to the practice school. But if I want to become a researcher, then you also can do during that same semester of something related to research and write a paper or something. So I think that is what we are now looking at. But in the country, it's very important to do that now. All institutions. I was chairing, in fact, an AICT committee. This is exactly we gave as a recommendation that all the colleges, engineering colleges in the country, and all the industries, through the government processes, we need to mandate that something like that will happen. You can create clusters in Hyderabad. Look at all the industries that are present. Look at all the colleges that are present. Create a cluster and ensure that this happens within that cluster. So create these clusters and ensure that the industries and the academic institutions in that cluster are able to collaborate with each other. Do some of these practice school kind of things. I think that we need to do that as part of the national education policy.
Yes. Actually, now coming back to your specialization, for example, microelectronics and nanotechnology. And I'm not a subject expert, but I have read about you because before coming to interview you have a huge experience. You have done so many things. But everybody has a proud moment, and you must have maybe not one, maybe two, three, maybe. I just really want to know where you felt that, yes, I have achieved that. That because I love films. And as I told you, that one gets a role and he feels that this is the role I was looking for. No, you have done, because through- I have known you, actually, I tell you, I have known you during my, when I was very actively associated with International Academy of Engineering, because that was the time when I really was interacting with most of the fellows, and to know them much more personally than you know what they are, and something like that. But when I was going through your stuff, I found you have done so many things. But your moment, you just tell one or two such things that which made you kind of.
My life journey, even after joining IIT, was a little bit different from other faculty members. For example, I came back from the US, and then I brought a lot of problems from US because I was working with industries there, and I continued to work on the same problems. So for the first 7 years, I joined in 1998 as an assistant professor in IIT Bombay, and 2005 I became a professor. But until that time, I was actually working on the problems that I brought from the US, where I was actually working with industries, and I could write lots of papers. And as an assistant professor, or when I became associate within a short time, and I wrote lots of papers. I got established myself as a researcher, which I always say is important for a researcher. There is a time for every researcher to do you know different things at different phases in life. I mean, as an assistant professor, associate professor, I just wanted to build a good research profile for myself. And I won all the awards at that time. I got a Swana Jayanti Fellowship in 2004, Bhatnagar Prize in 2005, and became a fellow of INAE a little later, around the same time. And so I was then doing very well. But all of that happened because of the publications that I was able to publish in good top journals in our area and all that. During my peak, I used to write 25 to 30 papers in top journals in my area, and I had a group of almost like 25 PhD students, and large number of projects and all of that. And but around 2005, I consciously, once I became a professor, and then I was very conscious about what would I do, what would I want to do with my life. Do I want to continue to publish more papers, or do I do something differently? And that is when I wanted to do things which are more relevant for the society in India, because all these problems I was working on were all semiconductor technology related. So my collaborators were all Intel, Infineon, Texas Instruments, so some of these applied materials. So I was closely collaborating with these industries. But at that time, India was not even now. It's India is not a player in the semiconductor technologies. So all of this work was with their US counterparts, the main units in the US, and so which were all good. But then around 2005, along with a few young faculty, at IIT Bombay, I was in a way keen on doing take up some problems which can make an impact in the society around us. So I very consciously started also working on sensors because I realized that semiconductor technologies will be good. That's my bread and butter. That's where I write papers and do all of that. And but the sensors is one area, the Internet of Things, the IoT kind of areas. So is one area where India can benefit from because agriculture agriculture requires huge number of sensors, whether it is soil moisture, soil health monitoring, or diseases for everything. Or healthcare also requires so many sensors for diagnostic purposes. Environment will require a lot of sensors. So everywhere you see, I thought sensors will be one important area to focus on where you gather information and then how you use that information, what actions you want to take will depend on multiple other factors. But measuring, let's say, air pollution is important for you to even decide how to address the air pollution problem. So therefore, I started to focus on sensors alongside my core research expertise in semiconductors. So I started to take PhD students and got involved in microelectromechanical systems. And then by 2010, 2011, we were actually building systems, for various applications. One of the very first systems we built was a cardiac diagnostic device, using a microelectromechanical system. Then we built an explosive detector using again a very novel kind of a technology. Then we built soil sensors and then built complete IoT systems for sensors. And but there were no industries which were interested in taking any of those technologies. So I started my first company, NanoSniff Technologies, in 2011, along with my co-founders. And then started my second company in 2018, Soil Sense for Agriculture. Now both these companies are in the market and they are selling products. NanoSniff, for example, I mean, they hired a lot of good people. Now, whatever proof of concepts we showed, they actually built the systems using that. They hired some good people, and my own students are running these companies now, and they are able to sell systems now. Many airports in India have technologies developed by NanoSniff for explosive detection, and similarly, Soil Sense is already selling it to many farmers and all of that. So that is how the whole thing evolved in my case. Started with semiconductor technologies, which is what I still work on. I still collaborate with many industries. But these days, what gives me satisfaction is making something work in the field. So that is what gives me the satisfaction. And for that, I am not the person who can do that entire thing. Starting from thinking of an idea to getting it work in the field, I don't have all of that expertise. Therefore, I collaborate with people, and so there I do up to some point. It's like a relay race, right? You do up to certain point, somebody takes up the technology, which is usually the startups or some industry, and takes it forward and makes it into a product and then sells it in the market. So most of the research that I do now is all related to getting systems out into the market. So, and I focus on systems now. I don't focus on just individual topics. I do publish lots of papers on the materials and devices still, but my end goal is to build a system out of whatever I do. Even now, I'm working on a technology platform for cancer, the radiation therapy. When cancer patients go through, how do you monitor the radiation? How do you monitor the radiation profile? How do you match it with the tumor, profile? All of that requires sensors again. So my project currently is about developing those radiation sensors where I have a US patent, and so all of these are covered through various patents and all of that. So that eureka moments came at multiple stages. Very often the eureka moments are when something really works as a system, right? You started at the materials level, put everything together, and it actually works, right? So that is very exciting. And when your paper gets accepted in a top journal, right, and which you believe is something which is very noteworthy, which can impact the field. I remember in the middle of night, calling my colleague in Germany in an industry, saying that we found this. I think tomorrow we should file a US patent on this because it is so important, kind of a thing. And both of us discussing for a couple of hours on, on we should do that because this can become very impactful in the area. I think, those are the moments that I still cherish. That when you have a paper, when you have found something which can solve a very long-standing problem in CMOS, for example, for us, subthreshold swings in the transistors, reducing the power dissipation is important. Reducing the energy consumption for operation is important. So when you have found a solution to that, in which will reduce the energy consumption for a given operation, that's a eureka moment. And but as a researcher, for me, publishing a paper, the world recognizing that is what gives me the most satisfaction. But then, since most of my work was done in collaboration with industries, they don't want to give away that IP so easily, and they say, "Oh, first let us file a patent. The European patent, US patent. We will publish it. We will have the patents filed, and then you can go ahead and write a paper." So that is how I have been doing. So I have over 50 patents now because of that process I followed. It's always patent first and then publish later. And then, if you start a company, you can prosper. So therefore, the patent, publish, prosper. That's a process that I always followed, since 2005. Until 2005, my goal was to, write good papers, build a good research profile. But after that, the eureka moments have been when you thought you solved a problem, and when you have a system which actually works and starts to detect something selectively. And I think these have been the moments, and I think it has been a great journey. And but I always believe that at different stages in career, you need to do different things. When I see a young assistant professor, wanting to start a company, I get a little bit worried because that is too early. At the age of 30, if I want to start a company, I don't see anything wrong in that. But then, before you even published papers, you started a company, and then your students are working for the company. You don't publish enough papers because, there is a commercialization angle to that. You never built a proper profile, a research profile, and nobody wants to work with you. And then you want to go for a promotion. The reviewers ask you, but you haven't published enough. But you say, I have a company, but then there are, all kinds of challenges. So therefore, I think there is a time for everyone to do things in different domains, and that's what I believed in. So you become a good researcher before you even become a multidisciplinary kind of a researcher. I collaborate with the 4 or 5 departments, at IIT Bombay. I used to collaborate with people from different departments, but I did not start my career collaborating with them. I started my career working on a problem which I can do on my own with my students. Most of my initial papers are all what is based on my expertise. Once people recognize me as a good researcher, then once I started to focus more on systems, the systems kind of research always required collaboration. So I collaborated with lots of people, in various departments. But therefore, that phase came next. So I think, I always tell young faculty members that there is a time for everything. So which is very important. There is no point in being, always in a rush to do the next level thing. I mean, there is also a time to get into administration. Until I was 50 years of age, I did not even do any administration. I did nothing. I only wrote papers, used to go to library, laboratory, work with students, write papers. My entire circle was my collaborators, my students, my office, and I had no idea what administration was, all of that. But once I crossed 50, then I had opportunities to, do things in the administration side. So that's how I chose that as a career after some time.
Actually, my related question to you is with that only, that since you are a teacher, you are a researcher, you are an administrator. And when I look at these three things, they are require very different type of things, teaching, research, administration. How do you manage? Because from you, I understand you are still continuing, maybe not with regular teaching, but at least with research as well as administration is definitely, yes, research also, and research and innovation and all that. How do you manage these things? This is my first part. And second part, since you have worked in a mostly in a government organization and now in a private organization, do you think these activities are possible in both kinds of organizations, or uh, You are getting my point.
But
Yeah, my point is that sometimes, you are so bogged down with so many things. For example, many of my friends are vice chancellors in different universities, but they are excellent researchers, excellent teachers, but they don't get any time for this thing. But what I understand from you is still managing both the things, how you do that, because this is very, very useful. Because I sometimes wonder if somebody is a very good scientist and suddenly you give him a corner room and take away all his laboratories from him, what happens? Whether we are doing service to him or disservice to the nation. Now that's the question.
that's a good point. And when I became director of IIT Delhi, I had no administrative experience at IIT Bombay. I was not a head. I was not a dean. I did nothing. I was, of course, head of a Center for Research in Nanotechnology, which I helped build at IIT Bombay.
Okay.
But when I went for interview for the IIT, I was nominated for the IIT Delhi director position. And then that's when I was called for the interview because somebody nominated me. And when I went there, the then Minister of Education, she asked me, but you don't have any administrative experience. How can you manage IIT Delhi? And my answer to her was, I have worked with people. As part of my research, I run projects where there are 100 people employed. I run a facility which is costing 300 crores kind of a thing. My daily job is to run that large facility, interact with people, build faculty from all over the campus, make them use the facility, and get something done out of people working together, right? That is the skill that I have. I have made my career by working with people and be able to direct them in a way which is needed to produce something. So therefore I think I have that ability. And of course they trusted me the time, and they made me the director. And but when I left IIT Bombay, even the reason for going to IIT Delhi was more out of frustration than anything else. And I just moved into a new bungalow in IIT Bombay, and I furnished that bungalow with my own personal money. I spent still 7 lakh rupees on a government bungalow because I thought I will retire there, and I still had about 15 20 years of career.
Yeah.
So I thought I will now since I'm going to live in this place for the next 15 20 years, so therefore I will furnish it the way I want, and I will just live here and then retire from this. So that's what I thought. Within 1.5 years after moving there, I thought, maybe I should go and do something else kind of a thing. Because, I was frustrated simply because IIT Bombay is a great place. Everything is good. But the struggles I faced as a innovator, as an educator, I never had any complaints with IIT. Even as a researcher, I never had any complaints with IIT. All of that was fine. The moment I wanted to translate that knowledge into wealth, right? That is the process of innovation, that translating that knowledge into something which is useful for the people. There I faced all the innumerable challenges there. Everything was a problem. I was one of the very first faculty members to start a company. There was not even proper conflict of policies. And I was, seen as a great researcher until that time. Once I started a company, everybody started seeing me in a different way, that now he wants to make money and all of that. There was suspicion associated with everything. And there was nothing like that. I knew that I'm not doing all of that for money, but I just wanted to demonstrate that the knowledge that you generate needs to eventually help the society. That was my sole motive for doing anything like that. But the systems, had their own challenges with that. I started facing challenges because I needed to, for example, build a prototype manufacturing facility. Now I made systems, right? I started companies, and I could make 5 systems, 10 systems in the laboratory, in an academic laboratory. But to actually take it to the market, right? To do field trials and to take it to somewhere, you needed to make those systems in hundreds and thousands and sometimes tens of thousands. And for those advanced technologies we were working on, there was no place in the country to where you could manufacture anything like that. So we wanted to create a facility. Then we went to ministry. The ministry gave us money. They saw that something like that needs to be done. But where would you create it? The only place I knew was IIT Bombay. I came back to IIT Bombay. I said, I want to create a prototype manufacturing facility. But they said, but I said, but students, we will not be able to allow that because It is meant for scaling up. You for all research, you go to the normal research labs and do research. When you think something is working fine, when you have made 10 systems and shown that all the 10 systems are working, then you come to this facility and then do subsequent kind of a work. But then, there were issues of how can you do that in a campus, the space, the buildings, and everything became very messy. And even for the company, there were conflict of interest. Like, for example, we got a project from the principal scientific advisor's office to work on a problem, right? And that problem required us to eventually commercialize something. That they funded the project to commercialize. I told them that as a professor, I won't be able to do that. So I need to work with a company. That company which has expertise is my own startup. But then I get government money. I cannot give that money to my startup. There is obviously a conflict of interest. And then I went to IIT Bombay. I said, now let's figure it out, right? Government wants us to do this, right? I want to work with this startup, and it's a government money. How do I work with this startup for developing a complete product, right? And then there was national level committees. PSA office also made a national level committee. IIT made a committee to do that, and they gave a global tender, seeking a company to participate. Obviously, it is such a specialized area. Against that global tender, there is only one company that submitted a bid, and that happened to be my own startup. Then IIT said, but it's a single bid there. You cannot, work with on a single bid. I will not approve that. And then what do you do after that? We could not solve the problem. Even today, I can tell you that problem exists in this country. Recently, I was in a ministry meeting and they were all talking of innovation, professors becoming, would be innovators, entrepreneurs, and all of that. I said, how would you solve this problem today, right? I have a government project, right? Government is now with through startup schemes and all of that. They are generously funding faculty, but the expectations are always to develop a product, right? They want to see prototypes. But for me to do that, I need to collaborate with some industry, right? And then, that industry, but if it is a large industry, public sector, there is no problem. If it is a public sector, you can go give the money and all of that will work. If it is a private industry, then who will decide that? And if that private industry happens to be your own startup, there is still no way you can work with your own startup. So this is the kind of challenges which we haven't addressed even now. I faced this problem in 2011 to 2015 kind of time frame. 2024 today, this problem still exists in our academic institutions. Therefore, bringing Saraswati and Lakshmi is a complete no-no. Nobody is willing to see in an academic institute Saraswati and Lakshmi staying together. I always say that we have enabled the process of pursuing Saraswati to Lakshmi. Right? And today there are so many colleges I can pay a fee, get a degree. But pursuing Lakshmi to Saraswati, there are lots of challenges.
Yes.
It's not very easy in this country. So these were the kind of frustrations that I faced. And I said, I need to address it. If I don't address it, having come this far, if I don't address it, for a larger, set of people, for institutions, then nothing will ever happen. In IIT Delhi, I went with these frustrations at IIT Delhi. I said, innovation is what we should be doing, right? Research is happening, teaching is happening. I think, that we will continue to do. How will we, make sure that the innovation in our academic institutions will prosper? Innovation, as I said, knowledge to wealth translation. So we at IIT Delhi, if you see my entire track record, I started multidisciplinary schemes. We started to fund faculty who work across the disciplines because all product, all, societal kind of relevant work will always be interdisciplinary. You can't do that. Being an electrical engineer, I can build a circuit, but that circuit eventually needs to go into a system. That system needs to go into something else to, for the society to use it. So therefore, I always believed that to bridge that gap in the multidisciplinary research, we funded projects across departments. We funded projects across institutions. We started FIRP, Faculty Interdisciplinary Research Scheme, where we funded lots of faculty. We funded multi-institutional faculty interdisciplinary scheme. I started a PhD incubator. We started a program called FIRE, Faculty Innovation and Research-Driven Entrepreneurship. We wanted faculty who have that ideas to start a company. We said institute will give you 50 lakh rupees as a startup grant, which is equity investment, and would provide you all the support. We made conflict of interest policies very clear. We did all of that in IIT Delhi. My goal was to ensure that the knowledge that we are generating, will also be seen by people as something useful. That was all what was there. I can name at least 10 things I did, from encouraging that research to now innovation, the translation, bridging the research with innovation kind of a thing. So I was successful. I mean, IIT Delhi was filing 20, 25 patents per year. By the time I left, IIT Delhi was filing 160 or 170 patents. And every fifth faculty member in IIT Delhi, in some departments became a entrepreneur. And then I wanted to see more PhD students starting companies, and we started a PhD incubator. So that was my goal at IIT Delhi. So while all of that also gave a huge boost to research, the research funding, IIT Delhi was doing 70 crores, 100 crores of research when I joined. By the time I left, the peak we touched was about 300 crores kind of a thing. A four times growth in everything in terms of startups, in terms of patents. Patents, we saw an order of magnitude growth. So I think all of that happened because of the push for innovation. Because my goal was to, whatever problems I face as an individual, we need to solve it at an institutional level. And once you showcase that, show that how it can be done in one institution, other institutions will pick up, the kind of the programs that you have done and copy them at the national level. And I think that is what made me to do all of that at IIT Delhi. Even in BITS Pilani, that's exactly the process that we are doing. 2013 March, I joined BITS Pilani. BITS Pilani was filing 20 patents every year. Now this year, within a year after I took over, within a year, now this year we filed 120 patents. From 20 patents to 120 patents happened in just 1 year. Now we are already making policies for faculty entrepreneurship. We started already a scheme to support faculty for entrepreneurship. We made policies how faculty can become entrepreneurs, and we are beginning to fund more and more students. I funded last year 100 projects among students. All these projects are through a scheme we called Sparkle and Solve. The problems will be societal problems, and a group of students will pick up a societal problem and will build a solution. The solution can be very preliminary, very small, but they will actually build something which they can go and demonstrate. So that we funded 100 projects under that scheme. So I think this is what drives me basically, because it is not that all these three are very independent. Research is not independent from innovation. Innovation is not independent from administration. To me, whatever problems I face while doing while fulfilling my responsibilities as a faculty member, can I solve them for a larger system? So that is what drives me to do administration. Of course, I still have research problems. I still have research students. I think I will start a company in the next 3 years, for that medical dosimeter kind of a work. I'm driven because these things will always happen. But I think I see a seamless integration between education, research, innovation, and administration. These I never saw them as becoming in different quadrants or anything. All of them for me are one unified kind of a thing. Unless we unify all of that, I don't believe we will be able to make any significant progress as a nation, with so much of innovation potential.
Actually, my question while talking to you, it comes to me the challenges of leadership, which is a very big challenge. For example, take your example. You are director of IIT Delhi, which is an old institute. You are now vice chancellor of BITS Pilani, which is also a very old institute. Now a new leader comes. The big challenge is that you have to overcome so many things, piling things, which I have seen in many of my friends, Sometimes, these challenges are so big, sometimes you really want to do something very big, as I get it from your this thing, but you don't get enough time to do all these things. So then you have to decide your priorities. How how do you decide your priorities? My question is, because it is a leadership position, you have not only your personal things, you have to also think about the institute. And the third thing you have to also think about, when you come to that stage, you also think about the nation.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, is a very, very big thing for someone of your stature, to think about. So you have to balance all these things. You cannot, and everything is very important for you. Your personal things are as important as your institute things, or your relations, maybe they are interrelated to each other. How do you manage this thing? And because I have seen this thing not happening
Right.
in many of my colleagues.
Yeah.
That
I
is my
think, one thing which about me is I am very passionate, right? I am not doing anything half-heartedly. If I am, doing something, I would give my 100% to that, or I will not do it at all. Whether it is education, even as a teacher, I was a good teacher, and as a researcher, of course, I have demonstrated all of that work that I have done. Even as an innovator, even as an administrator, I bring my passion to work. Nothing for me is a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday kind of a work. I am 24 by 7 on all of that. And in Delhi, the challenge was the government, right? The ministry is sitting there. And I have seen in my 6 years as the director at IIT Delhi, there were five secretaries. Ministry of Education had five secretaries and four ministers. Now, in 6 years, when there are five secretaries, four ministers, obviously there is no continuity you can expect from the ministry point of view. So therefore, but fortunately, there was a good secretary, right, who was also additional secretary, and Mr. Subramaniam Reddy. He was very good as a secretary. I have not seen anybody of that caliber. I have interacted with so many people from the bureaucracy, and he was a gem of a person. Of course, there were challenges and all that, but when it came to interacting and then convincing him on the kind of things that we need to do and all of that, he was open minded. He was willing to work with us, and I think things were good on many counts. With him we could actually get many things done. So once in a while you come across such people, and but my role at IIT Delhi, I told myself, is to raise resources. I can do so many things, but you need money for that, and there is only that much you can expect from the government. Fortunately, there was institutions of eminence scheme, and we championed it from IIT Delhi side. The whole institute came together to write a great proposal. I went and defended that to a high empowered kind of a committee. We got in that first lot IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, and IASC. These were the only three institutions among the public funded institutes which were given the IOE status, and among some 100 institutions. And to be selected among the top three, right, for that status among 100 institutions, I think the credit goes to the proposal we put together, and the way we defended and all of that. So that gave us some money, right? And then I connected with DRDO, and I went and spoke with almost all the secretaries, DRDO, ISRO, and many other kind of secretaries, because the DRDO, for example, started a joint advanced technology center, and IIT Delhi received almost like 350 crores during my time as part of the DRDO funding. At least 100 faculty, 120 staff and students were actually working on DRDO funded problems, and that gave us some resources. So we were able to raise resources, and then with all these schemes that we started, we were able to connect with a large cross section of people. And then another thing which I thought as a director I should do was even recruit the best talent. Right, when it came to recruiting the best people, we never compromised, and the promotions and all of those policies at IIT Delhi were completely redone, and save 6 month kind of promotions. The faculty recruitment cycles, reducing them to two times every year. So a lot of such things we did. So I think all of that was possible because I was passionate, right? I wanted to transform at least one institute and show it as a model case. And if you look at all the numbers, I mean, of course, COVID came. So I couldn't have done anything, but if you look at the trajectory of IIT Delhi, the kind of things we did, even infrastructure, we started 2 million square foot infrastructure space. That was a space which got started during my time. Now IIT Delhi is taking possession of that space. So on the infrastructure front, on the new policies front, on the promotions, in getting funds, in recruitment of faculty, in connecting with the institute, with the ministry to get that institution of eminence scheme. So a lot of things happened, and everywhere there were good people who played a role, a very key role, and all of that we could deliver. Then after my term ended, Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla, right, the Chancellor of BITS Pilani Group, he was the Chairman Board of Governors. So that's how I reported to him as the chairman for 3 years at IIT Delhi.
Yes, yes.
And so that is when we both came to know each other. And he admired me. I also admired him. And he is a great man. I thought, being such an industrialist, the kind of things he was very open-minded, the integrity and all of that he brought to that position. I was fascinated by him. And after my term ended, when he asked me whether I can join BITS Pilani, it did not really take me much of convincing. And within a month, I accepted, and I am here. And BITS Pilani, when everywhere I go, I did not know much about BITS Pilani except that it's a good undergraduate institution. If you can get in IITs, you come to BITS Pilani. That has been the case for the past 60 years. I said, the first question I asked is, why should BITS Pilani be in the shadows of IIT?
Yes.
Why can't it come out and establish itself as a preeminent kind of an institution where you want to go to BITS Pilani, even refusing a seat in IIT? So for that, what do we need to do? And I started talking to a lot of stakeholders, alumni, and everybody. So we made a vision 2030, and in that vision, we actually looked at the current data. Where do we want to go, right? And we benchmarked every aspect of BITS Pilani with the three IITs: IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, IIT Madras. So we now have charts for everything that happens at BITS Pilani, benchmarked with these top three institutions which are ranked in the NIRF. Now I know where BITS Pilani is in comparison with all of these three institutions, and all of them are on my fingertips now. And now, how do we reach there, right? How do we write as many papers as IIT, let's say Bombay is publishing? And for that, what do we need to do, right? Then we have those kind of milestones, and we have our strategy, and the steps to be taken, a time bound kind of a thing. Now, for example, BITS Pilani annually does about 70 crores of research. That's the average funding BITS Pilani receives from various competitive research grants, the extramural grant. Now, how can we take that 70 crores to 200 crores, right? I mean, there is only so much you can get from government, but there is a huge untapped potential from the industries, right? Before I came to interview, the one I'm actually creating an office for industry research, right? Kind of a thing where we're actually creating an entire office whose role is to connect BITS Pilani with industries. And because we are very well connected with industry otherwise, through placements, through practice school, and also through the WIL program that we have, the work integrated learning programs. But we never tapped the same industries for any research kind of activities. So now I'm saying, if we are connected with 650 industries through a variety of these schemes, why can't we go to them with research proposals and get some research funding from them? So now I'm building actually an office here, which will be headed by a director level person. And so this person with 25 years of working in industries will actually, or with leading academic institutions, will actually do that connect. And then we have targets now every year. How do we want to grow in terms of industry funding? And then patents. We were filing 15, 20 patents. I said, how do we reach 200 patents? So we again set kind of targets, and then we said in this time frame we will reach that kind of a number. And the way I could see, within a year we could actually exceed those targets. And so I think everywhere you study, you benchmark. In IIT Delhi, for example, the benchmark was some of the top international universities, and here we are first benchmarking with these three top IITs. And one study now, I have a huge presentation on MIT in the US versus BITS Pilani, right? BITS Pilani started with collaboration with MIT. The first 10 years in BITS Pilani, as you might know, there were a lot of MIT faculty coming here, establishing the curriculum, establishing structures, and a lot of things happened because of that MIT collaboration to the Ford Foundation. So now, so whatever you see in MIT had that practice school concept. So BITS Pilani also got that and implemented and all of that. Now, when I look at, we are still what MIT was 60 years ago. MIT has moved on in the last 60 years. Now it's a totally different kind of an institute.
Yes.
So now I have a complete presentation on where MIT is today and where BITS Pilani is today. So now I want to see what is that we need to do so that we now become like the MIT of the current times, not MIT which was 60 years ago. So I think this benchmarking is very important. Once you benchmark with top 3 in India and MIT, which is ranked number 1 in almost all parameters. Now the question is, how do we reach there? It will require resources. Therefore, where do you get those resources? The financial model is very critical for every institution. I have written articles in newspapers saying the biggest challenge of IITs. And I always say that there are only two type of institutions in the country. One type of institutions which are dependent on government of India for 90% of their funding. These are all like the IITs and other places. There are other kind of institutions which are dependent on tuition fee for 90% of their revenue, right? Both these models are wrong. I mean, if you are heavily dependent on government, if you are heavily dependent on tuition fee, both are not going to work in terms of achieving excellence. So therefore, how can we have a diversified financial model? I have now studies. In fact, I can, I'm been talking about it. I have studied the financial model of universities in Australia, universities in Asia, universities in the US, universities in Europe. Where do their revenues come from? Right? Take the case of Stanford. Right? It's a private institution. Their revenues from tuition fee are only about 18%, 18 to 20%. Right? It's a private institution. In BITS Pilani, it's almost 90%. But where do the other money, other revenue streams exist in Stanford? Endowments, right? Endowments contribute almost 25 to 30%. The research overheads contribute another 30 to 40%. And the other income, because Stanford also has medical school, which also contributes. So in BITS Pilani, we have none of those. So we started an endowment. Now we're announcing $100 million endowment for BITS Pilani because I want to see endowment revenues adding to the overall financial model of the institution. So alumni are coming forward. In just the last 1 year that I've been here, there are at least 10 alumni now who have committed 1 million or more towards the endowment fund. So we want to launch the 100 million endowment fund, $100 million endowment fund in the next 1 month or so. Because once you have the diversified financial model, then you don't have to rely on tuition. And if tuition keeps going up every year, then the merit will suffer. And then, you become a rich boys club at the end of the day, which is the last thing BITS Pilani should be doing. I think we want to have the diversity among the student population. We want to see that students, who are in the very low income families should be able to come to BITS Pilani and study, but somebody has to support their education. So that is what endowment fund will do. So I think, there is a plan, there is a vision, and there is a benchmarking. So that is how I have always operated, and that works very well. So you first see, where you are, and then you want to be somewhere else, right? And then you benchmark yourself with other institutions, and then you put in place processes, and you put in place even models for revenues, the resources, so that you eventually achieve that kind of a position that you aspire to. So that has always worked for me, and I think Indian institutions need to go to that model. I think neither do public funded institutions have that model, nor the private funded institutions, and which is bad for the country. I mean, I think IITs, the tuition fee for in IIT Delhi, right, contributes about 6% to IIT revenues, just 6%, right? And in IISc, it's of course even less because they don't even have a large undergraduate program, and that's not the way you can run IITs. And I think a lot of things need to change when it comes to financial models.
I think the last question to you is a little, but is again very more or less philosophical. You can say, uh, what do you think about, now I'm talking about the nation. What do you think of the S&T leadership vis-a-vis nation development? Because what I find when I study other countries, and this role is much more strengthened in other countries, whereas in our country, maybe we have so many things, everything is in place,
Exactly.
but no, they are not working. They are not working. They are not reaching the most of the things what we are doing at these levels. Then government doesn't know.
All right.
Well, and we always try to blame that government is not interested in all that, but we have to say things loud and clear that this is what we really want. And that I find is very, very important. What is your view about that?
Yeah. I've also been writing about it, about this, the way the science administration is happening at the national level. This entire model of going to DST for funding is a very flawed model, right? Today, how does research happen? 85% of research happens in our institutions. 85%. A faculty member thinks of a problem, right? Where would he or she got that problem? By reading some research papers, right? Or by, from some source, went to a conference, so he saw some good paper, he or she saw some good research work. I want to do the same thing, and then writes a proposal, goes to DST, or Department of Science and Technology, or DBT, one of those Ministry of Science and Technology, writes a proposal, goes there. A few people like us, you and I have served on those committees, right? It's mostly academicians like us. We review that project, and if we think that that project can lead to something, when I say lead to something, it's basically publications, right? And then you fund that project, and then that is how 85% of research in the country happens, right? But at least in my opinion, let that model should happen to be maybe 30 to 40% of cases. How should the rest 60% of research happen? What DST does is it actually has ties with all these ministries: Ministry of Road Transport, Ministry of Food Processing, Ministry of Heavy Industries, Ministry of Textiles. They all work with the sectors. These are all the nodal ministries, the line ministries, which have a lot of stake on the ground, right? Entire textile thing is looked after by the textile industry. Now they know what are the challenges in the textile industry. And if this ministry, for example, sources problems from textile industry and then tells DST that these are the problems that I have, our industries want to be solved, and here is the money, right? And if they give problems and the funding to DST, and then DST now tells faculty that here are the problems that the textile ministry wants to do. Do you have any solutions for that? And then you submit proposals against those specific calls on the specific problems that you are asked to solve. And then you go there, and then these textile industries will sit across the table and along with some academicians, and then you discuss those proposals, fund them. I want to see more such kind of examples. Similarly, textile is just an example. The same thing should happen in almost all the with all the line ministries. Right now, the interministerial collaboration is hardly existent. Right, no ministry talks to anybody. The worst thing is every ministry has created their own institutions, and they are not able to manage them. Other than MOE managing academic institutes, DST managing research, nobody else can do that properly. They have started institutions but don't know how to run these institutions. Or they have started research programs. When one secretary is there, would have started something. Once the secretary goes away after 2 years, the whole program will also get shelved now. But therefore, MOE, at least, good or bad, MOE knows how to run institutions. They have a entire structure for that. DST knows how to fund, how to collaborate with academic institutions. All these ministries, instead of starting their own institutions, why don't they go to MOE? Why don't they go to DST, the Ministry of Science and Technology, with the problem statements, with the funding support, and then engage academia to solve those national kind of problems? That hardly happens in this country, right? And then the grand challenges. I mean, I always say that India has all the problems of the world. If you are looking for a problem, you don't have to go and read an American journal or anything. Now, some of these problems become white papers, right? And against this white paper, now the government, the DST, calls for proposals, right? The grand challenge kind of an initiative. Think of 10 problems in this country, which if you can solve, right, you can become, a major force in the world in that sector. Think of those 10 problems, engage with academia, because all the talent exists in academia. Some of the brightest and the best people you see exist in academia, but they are working on problems which are of no relevance to anybody, because they are picking problems from the library, from here, from there. There is no cohesive kind of a way. They are entrusted the responsibility of solving the national problems. Now, through those grand challenge initiative, you engage with academia. Through those ministerial collaboration, you engage with academia. That is what we need to be doing. While 20, 30 projects, I can go and get funding from my colleagues who are sitting across the table. The rest 60 to 70% of projects, I want to see where, with clear problem statements, right, with clear funding models. That is what ideally should happen. Once we move to that, the biggest challenge in this country is even the rankings, if you look at, right? I mean, we are ranked third in the world for research. US, the first China, US, and India, right? But when it comes to innovation, we are ranked 40th, right? That shows the gap that exists between research and innovation. How do we bridge that? The only way to bridge is to involve industry into this whole thing. On academia industry collaborations, we today rank 66th among the 130 countries, right? The industry research is hardly existent right now, and the industries collaborating with academia needs to become a national program, right? Government, needs to encourage industries through policies or through incentives or whatever way it is, needs to make industries come and work with academia. And I always say that, government wants some love marriage to happen between academia and industry. That's not happening. 75 years, what love marriage has happened? Nobody is working with anybody still. I think what government needs to do is make an arranged marriage and tell them to live together. I can tell you within 5 years, 10 years, they will find love, right? They would like each other and they would want to collaborate on those kind of models. That is what that needs to happen in this country. So government role is to bring academia industry together because it's industry's role to translate research into innovation. And because we are not collaborating with them, obviously that whole process is broken now. And expecting government to keep on funding research where we publish papers is not, going to be sustainable. Any government will get worried, what you are taking money, but you are nothing much is happening, kind of a thing is not going to work. But the problem again lies with the government itself that you need to make policies, you need to incentivize industries so they can come and collaborate with academia. And once it happens, I can tell you a lot of great things can happen because there is still so much of latent talent in academia. Some of the brightest people I have seen in this country are in academic institutions, whether it is BITS Pilani or IITs or IISc. You find the greatest minds in this country, but they need to be entrusted with the national problems. And if it happens, I can tell you India will be a developed country. And of course, when it happens, you will spend money better, right? You will also, government expenditure on R&D is pretty minimal right now, 0.6%. And, hardly out of 0.6%, half of it goes to DRDO and other agencies. And they need to also connect with academia again. And I think, that is what we need to increase the expenditure on R&D. We also need to make research easy to conduct. I know universities in this country where Calcutta University is one. I was talking to some faculty member. He says, I have stopped writing proposals to any agency because even if I get a project in my university, I cannot spend it. The bureaucracy has become so strong that I cannot even, get a UC. I cannot even spend that money which I get it. So I stopped doing research. You see some bright people in Calcutta University. Many universities are now reaching that kind of a level. Many universities I talk to, the faculty have given up on research because they say it's so difficult to do any research because government has so many, requirements. My university doesn't cooperate with me, and how will it happen? The gem is one big, kind of a fiasco in this country. GST on research is a big problem. The global tender inquiry running to some bureaucrat in Delhi for every purchase that you want to do where some import is involved. These are all the GFR. There are so many provisions in GFR, which become such a big challenge to, for academic institutions. A lot of these things need to be taken care of. They can only be taken care of if academicians are given that empowerment, right? When the people who are actually doing research, when they are making rules, they will know their problems and they can actually do that. But in this country, bureaucrats make the rules and then academicians need to follow them. I think, we have made things so difficult for them. That ease of doing research is very important. That needs to be taken care of. I hope, this government now will do that. And then, because there is so much of talent and you can connect them with the right set of problems, and then you can provide them funds and make it easier for them to do research. I can tell you, India will be a developed. Yes, there is so much of potential, and I feel sad when I see that it's not being utilized for the right purposes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very. It is an unending discussion. I think I will come back to you.
Thank you.
I will come back to you with British Pilani, or you will come to me
Of
at
course.
BIS at Jaipur. But we can talk about and talk about
Thank you so
many
much.
things. And it was. I am just telling you, your very very frank opinion you have given. We have learned many things. When I was discussing, they come to my mind. In different ways. But an experienced person like you who has gone through the whole thing
Uh,
and not only whole thing, he thinks about the country.
Of course.
That's a great discussion. I
Thank you so
think
much.
I will remember this discussion forever.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.